You want to hear it again? Okay. Again, it doesn't matter who wins tonight. What matters is if there's opportunity to trade it. So it doesn't matter your political preference, who you want to win. That's fine. That's great. How could you make money on it? Now, there's always a chance with an event like this that there's no opportunity moment. So always keep that in mind. We were together. Many of us were for Brexit. That came out late at night, U.S. time, and we were in front of a historic moment where the market got it wrong. They had 52-48, the polls, to stay in the European Union, and they voted to leave, I think, 52-48. That was a moment where the market got it wrong. Now we come into today, some early tracking numbers has Clinton in the battleground states ahead, and that might have been certainly a tailwind for us to rally. Coming out of Sunday, we had a gap open higher into Monday because why? The second FBI letter took some uncertainty off the table, and that's all the markets care about. Uncertainty versus certainty. We rally in certain results. With certainty, we break and get weak with uncertainty. The bonds fell, continue to stay weak, and it's called risk on, risk off. When you put risk on, people buy stocks and sell bonds. When they take risk off, they sell the hell out of stocks and buy the hell out of bonds. Trump isn't necessarily bad. It's just uncertain as a non-politician. Whereas Clinton is a safer choice as a knowing what you maybe get with a Republican Congress. And so overall, a good letter or link that Peter sent me was the market would probably be most comfortable and bullish if she were to win and the Republicans were to continue to control both the House and the Senate. Just seems to be a likely outcome going in. And that's why that was even before the second FBI letter that exonerated her of any charges. There was nothing here type of letter. Whether or not it matters, we'll see. It didn't matter for the market, though. Markets don't always get things right. If they did, we would never move. We would never have volatility. We would never spike. We would never break and all the rest of the stuff, just like Brexit. So how to trade election night. You can't just sit in front of your screens and trade every uptick and downtick. You have to assign and correlate it with some news. So let's go and look at a couple scenarios. Some early states. What do I mean by early states for you guys overseas? East Coast states, their polling places close first at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Some of the East Coast states, I think, close at 9 Eastern. But an important one, North Carolina, closes at 7 o'clock Central Time. This is why North Carolina, Florida, and Ohio are important. If Trump loses any one of those states, he loses. The market's going to say it's over. He's got to win all three of these states. Florida and North Carolina are the two toss-ups. North Carolina closes at 7 Central. If it comes in that he has a chance or is winning it based on the precincts reported and where they're at, he's in business. Same with Florida, but he's got to have both of them. Ohio is not really much of a surprise. He's up. He probably will win it, even though it's a swing state. These two states are toss-ups. And very early on, it could set a precursor to what the other toss-up states. No two states are always the same, but what does matter is if they get it wrong, they could get it wrong. Meaning if they thought this was a toss-up and he comes up and he's winning, wow, some of the other toss-up states could tilt that way. If he has no chance here, then he probably doesn't have any chance in some of the other toss-ups and so on. So if the early trade could be this state right in here, these two states, if it's Trump, where the market would go down, and they could call it somewhat early, and I doubt that's going to happen. But if they do, you're prepared for it. They call it for her, North Carolina. We're going to rally initially because he really has no chance without North Carolina. If they call it for him and it's sooner rather than later, we could go down because he's in business, especially if he looks good in Florida and Ohio. Couple outliers on East Coast states. Pennsylvania, and I just put Penn because I can't spell Pennsylvania. That's an outlier and a big surprise if he were to win that state. He's close, but Republicans always get close. and they think they can get it and they never end up winning it. If he wins that and you see that somewhat early after 7 Central, it's a huge tipping point. Pennsylvania. Same with Virginia. Virginia, he's close, but was way behind in both of these states a few weeks ago, came back heavy. Again, precursor to what could happen if he were to win one of these 2 states. He can lose both of these states, but if he wins these 3, he's in business. Keep that in mind. He can win these 3, lose these 2, and it's not over yet. If he loses any one of these 3, though, it's over. Next state, another outlier, is Michigan. He's made a charge in that state, which has generally been a Democratic state since the 1980s, Michigan, Wisconsin. So if he wins Michigan, that's an East Coast, most of that state's on the East Coast time, and I believe their polls close at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. That's a state that if it shows goes to him is a precursor to he's in business. Right now, we're watching the market price in a Clinton victory, though. Make no bones about it. They're not pricing in that second letter. They did that yesterday. They did that Sunday night. They're pricing in some of these early tracks, these exit polls that have shown her in the lead in the battleground states. So I'm not going to get into the way the electoral map works. I'm going to show a map, but I'm not going to get into how it works and why this state doesn't matter and that state doesn't matter. Bottom line is that many states in the U.S. always go Democratic or always go Republican and usually never get campaigned in because they concede those states to the other side. These states flip, especially these 3 up here, especially in this cycle, Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio. So forget about what all these pundits and everything else, what they say. You got to listen as a trader, what could be first? What could be something that we could grab to decide it early to catch the market off balance? As of right now, the market would be most off balance if she lost because it's rallied the last 2 sessions. That would catch it most off guard. If she wins and we've rallied a bunch already and we rally more before we close, that's not an outlier. That's not a surprise anymore, right? It's baked in. We actually might sell off a little bit, like buy the rumor, sell the fact type of scenario. So the true outlier and the true opportunity to make money, forget about your political preference. Quite frankly, I don't care. To make money would be one of these states on the East Coast, especially Carolina, not only going his way, but going his way earlier than expected. Like, wow, it wasn't even a toss-up. They were leaning his way the whole time. Then you could begin to suspect a Brexit effect. I'm not predicting a Brexit effect. I'm not predicting anything. I just won't be surprised by anything. That's the right mental disposition to have. Don't allow yourself to be surprised. If you allow yourself to be surprised, you won't be ready for opportunity. So we've got these states pretty much licked. There's a state here and there. Forget about the West Coast. If he were to win these 3 states and win these 2 pretty decently, yeah, he still has to win another state, but it looks pretty good because of how he were to win these 2 states. All right, how we were to win these 2 states. There are other states that are important, don't get me wrong. I'm trying to give an early sense of direction for both the market and this election as early results come in. The market right now, though, is widely pricing in a win for her. All right, so let's go to this fun interactive map. Why is it fun? Because 270 is the magic number. Not the first one to get to 270, but the one to get to or above 270 is over the top, becomes a president. Blue is for Democrats. Red is for Trump. Here's the problem. These are toss-up states, but let's give some of these states to Hillary Clinton. We'll give Iowa to Trump, Ohio to Trump, Michigan to her. Even if he wins Georgia, which he will, even if he wins Florida and North Carolina, she wins. So just because he were to win these 2 big states I mentioned, and Ohio, doesn't mean he wins. He's still got to flip a couple other states because he's got to get her below 274, which is Pennsylvania, Virginia, or Michigan, or Nevada, or Colorado out west. So this is the grind that you'll be in and the unknown. He wins a couple states like North Carolina and Florida, and it puts him in business, but it doesn't give him the election. Make sense? He could still win New Hampshire. He could still win New Hampshire and be shy of 270. He could win, they call the second district in Maine or whatever. He's still shy. He still have to flip one of these blue states. We'll give this all red. Nebraska. He got to flip one of these blue states out west. Is it Michigan? That's why I put it on my list. If it is, it goes from blue to red. He wins, she loses. You see how it flips like that? Right now it leans her way. Same thing with Wisconsin. He wins, she loses. If he were to get New Hampshire, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, that stuff. But let's give her blue. Do you see why Pennsylvania and Virginia are important? Because if it goes from blue to red, he charges ahead. And it's a precursor that, wow, if he could win Pennsylvania, he should win some other toss-up states. Same thing with Virginia. They're kind of the same. Both lean towards her and would be a big surprise if they went to him. Carolina and Florida, if they went to him, aren't a huge surprise because they're really close. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, all three would be big surprises because they're not toss-ups. They should go to her. So then, if this is the scenario, then you got to go out west. He's got to certainly win all these states I have read, or he's in trouble. He's in trouble as it is if the map looks like this, as the polls start to close as we get into Mountain Time and West Coast time. Then it comes to these three states that are not toss-ups. They're leaning towards her. He needs to flip one or two of them, which means even if he were to flip this state, Nevada, this is a bearish outcome for the market. Period. This is a bearish outcome for the market because it's uncertain. They're both shy of 270. This district in Maine could decide it because Maine is one or two states that actually split some of the electoral votes. If you were to get Nevada and Colorado, he wins, he loses. If you were to get Colorado and not Nevada, he wins, she loses because there's a couple more votes in electoral votes in Colorado than Nevada. This outcome right here, that's the 269, 268. If he doesn't, it's really crazy with one of these districts in Maine, but this is the 268, 269, 269 up here. This is what the map would most likely look like. And the market's going to have now, not going to be super bearish because the House of Representatives, which is controlled by Congress, votes for the president, and it would be Trump. So then it would be taken to what? Trump victory, the fact that then it'd probably be contested because it's so close. It would be back-to-back bearish scenarios for the stock market if the map ended up looking like this at the end of the night. Now, let's go back to some of these states that are hers, but we don't know it because the polls out west haven't closed. And we open up after 7 Central, 8 Eastern. All of a sudden, it's announced pretty quickly that Hillary Clinton wins. We don't know if she's got 290, but we do know. Do you see how hard it is? If North Carolina and Florida go to Trump, it's still hard. Do you see that? So if either one of them go blue, which is towards Clinton, or for Clinton, it's impossible. That's why they're so important. That's why we mentioned them on the first slide. So if any one of those states, Ohio, but Ohio should go to Trump, any one of these two states report early that they're leaning towards Hillary Clinton, could be landslide city and an impossible path, as they call it, for him to get to 270. So that's why North Carolina, and if you leave them beige like this, they're toss-ups, and she still wins. That's why it's important for him to grab both of them and then flip one of these blue states that I have blue. If he flips Colorado, he wins. Nevada, could be a damn tie. These scenarios, the question I'm being asked, will it inject extreme volatility? It could. Here's what's going to be most volatile. The surprise. And right now, based on the market action the last two sessions, they're baking in a Clinton victory and a Republican taking over or keeping control of both chambers in Congress. So therefore, the surprise would be the opposite. Trump wins based on what the markets would catch the market off guard, just like it did with the Brexit vote in late June. We were trading that. But that, again, that's the scenarios how you have to interject this to trading. And you have to do it in the scenarios of not what you want to happen, but be objective and say what's priced in. And with these scenarios I'm laying out to you guys, wow, he not only wins North Carolina, they call it, it wasn't a toss-up. Florida, maybe it wasn't a toss-up. And he wins both of these states. And it's like, wow, he's pretty close in Virginia. He's got a chance in Pennsylvania. That's the early reporting. Then it creates the possibility of him to win. And even if he doesn't win, that moment, you find that moment, we'll have a big sell-off in equities and stock indexes. It's all about timing. Like I said earlier, it's not where the market goes. We covered where the market's going to go on these scenarios. But when? When would it start to go lower? So if we close higher, if we close where we're at now, they're breaking in a Clinton victory. So, we reopen, the market's trading, all of a sudden it's that moment where these two states are called and how they're called. Hey, it could go on deep into the night, not deep into the night, but it could go on where you don't know what happened in North Carolina or Florida. So let's keep them beige, right? They still can't call either one of these states and they're really close. And he wins Ohio, but he loses Iowa. Well, that sucked because he needed Iowa, and it was leaning towards him. So that moment when they called Iowa could be a bullish moment for stocks because it further bakes in she's going to win. So you see how the scenarios could change as you navigate through this map. But the easier scenario to trade is if early on these states go to him convincingly or early. And then as people who know how to read returns, I don't want to make this sound simple, but it is. You got to pay attention to the right channel to watch, because the proper way to read returns is North Carolina starts reporting from certain precincts that are heavily Democratic, and she's not winning by a lot. Then it's wow, he's keeping pace in highly Democratic precincts that are reporting. He's going to blast past her once the rural precincts start reporting. So it's where the votes are coming in from. And they know if they historically vote Democratic or Republican. So therefore they understand when to call the race. If she's up a little bit and a lot of his big precincts have been reported, they could call it for her because a lot of her big ones haven't been reported. You see how that goes? So that's how they could call a race before all votes are counted. That's something important to watch. If you can get someone on the news and they have them, but the right guy to say, hey, listen, these counties, they're all precincts, and precincts are within a county. So they go by counties rather than precincts. Counties have several precincts within them, but they'll say of all the counties reporting in North Carolina, most of them are big Democratic counties, and he's keeping pace. If you can get reports like that, well, then it's probably going to be a victory for him. Does that make sense? And you do that for every state. What counties have been reported? Are they bigger Democratic counties, and how is he doing? Wow, he's doing pretty good in her territory, so to speak. The biggest injection of volatility is going to be a Trump win because it's not expected, and the markets have clearly priced in and are pricing in that today. This is what the map looks like. This is how to visualize it when you guys are looking at it in the team room. If you guys get together tonight, don't sit in front of your desk necessarily to trade every comment, but you got to get to a couple news channels that are going over this, and these are going to be the two big ones, North Carolina, Florida, and then the kind of reaction and results they're getting trickling in from Pennsylvania, Virginia. Who's got questions? And New Hampshire is also a toss-up. It's only got 4 electoral votes, but they're important. They're an important 4. You see how the path is much more difficult for him than her, because, you know, some of you guys that aren't used to U.S. politics might say, well, how about this state, or how about California? California will always vote Democratic and always has in a presidential election. Illinois, the great state I'm from, New York, 3 states with a lot of electoral votes are always Democratic for presidential elections. So you can almost say if you're a Republican in California and you vote for the president, it's a waste of vote. But what are you going to do? That's the way the map's set up. Traditionally, this is how it goes. Now you look. I showed my wife this map and she goes, "Well, he wins." I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, it's a lot more red than blue." I said, "Yep, it is." Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. Any one of those go to Trump, it's a precursor that, wow, he's doing pretty good in these states that normally go blue. Pennsylvania, Virginia, under the same context. Yeah, New York, Illinois, California, typically Democratic states, or always lean in national elections. Well, the yen is going to, so I'm being asked about some other ancillary markets. Bonds and yen will be opposite to what the S&Ps do, especially if it's a surprise. So stocks go up right away. Yen and bonds should follow to the opposite side. Bonds go down if we continue to rally. Take a look at a bond chart real quick. This is what they've done on a 15-minute basis. They've just gotten hit and stayed near their lows throughout the whole session. You'll continue to see that if we equities continue to rally, which they haven't backed off since about an hour ago. Going back to the map, though, just like I said, if you have him lose North Carolina, it's over. And if it's called blue, same thing with Florida, early on, there could be a dud of a market reaction because it's already priced in. We actually could go down because it's, like I said earlier, buy the rumor like they've done the last 2 days that she's going to win, sell the fact. The opportunity always comes from the outlier, which is the surprise. Just parallel it to Brexit. They expected 52.48 that they were going to stay, ended up coming in 52.48 they were going to leave. Monster moves in the currency and equity markets that night, and bond markets, and all markets. So that's your map. When you drill down into this map, and that's the channel you want to follow, a guy that could drill down into these counties, and that's what they do. That's what their desks do. Their election desks do, is they drill down where the hell are these numbers coming in from. There's like 25% reported, and most of the counties reporting are highly Democratic, and he's tied. Wow. They could call the race at that point, or they could at least give you that information. That's why as soon as the polls close in Illinois, they call it for a Democrat. Same thing in New York. Those are your states to watch. Pennsylvania and Virginia are big. It's not a surprise if they go red in Carolina and Florida. They are if they do in Pennsylvania or Virginia. Now, not everything I said could happen. I mean, it could be like they don't know these 2 damn states, and you're sitting there waiting, and they do know Iowa, and it's real, real red. You know, so that as you go through, you're like, wow, the ones that were supposed to be close aren't. He's winning them pretty big, and just ebb and flow with it. Hopefully everybody has a better understanding on what could happen and what could be directional and the outlier. 7 Central is when these polls start closing, including North Carolina, the headliner. Gary, this is cool, he says. Never came across something like this from a trading perspective. All right, Steve, you're welcome. there's no other questions, we'll end it there. But remember, team room, just don't marry your screens and try to force something. In some of these anticipated directional moves, you oftentimes could get caught up in doing something and it doesn't move or moves against you, and you get stuck because you think a lot's going to happen and nothing happens. Sometimes Fed statements are like that. Just trade an outlier, and I think we've set them up pretty decently for you today. This map is from, I think it says right here, 270towin.com. It is a cool interactive map, the way you could change it and everything else. It just shows you how tough it is for him to win, and the way this election, how this map shows where they campaign. Like, you don't see him campaigning in Illinois or California or New York. Why would they want to spend money and time in states they know they're going to win or lose? We never see barely any commercials, some commercials, but barely anything comes out in Illinois because it's already given to the Democrat on a national level. I guarantee you people in Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida are seeing commercials, every commercial break, no matter what the hell you're watching. So from the top down, if you can catch North Carolina and Florida going his way pretty early, that's bearish for the markets. I don't care if you like Clinton. Don't be mad that that's the results, so you buy it because you're mad. Be objective. If you want Trump, it looks like she's going to win because he loses North Carolina, don't get mad and trade. Walk away, or if there's upside opportunity, buy the damn thing. But it's the surprises and the timing that's important. I remember there was a couple big, I don't know if what they call them in the UK, districts or territories that we read up on, that if they went one way, they were supposed to go the other way. And those were the biggest market moving moments of that night. And their districts or territories, whatever they call them, is very similar to our states. And I just walked through the important states. Let me just recap this last point, where if he wins these North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, but loses these other states, and then we go out west, she still is up 275. It comes down to these three, Nevada, Colorado, or New Mexico. He has no chance to win these other West Coast states. She has no chance to win any of these in the middle. He's got to flip one of these three states, and if he flips this one, he loses. So it's got to be Nevada or Colorado. Nevada makes it a tie. Colorado makes it a Trump win. The tie goes to the runner, Trump, because the House of Representatives, Republican, I think they will vote to break the tie, and the market won't like it for two reasons. Number one, it's contestable and not a clear winner, and number two, it's Trump, which is a little bit of an unknown and a wild card. So hopefully this helped, guys. I'll post the recording in a couple hours.